What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome to my ultimate Binding Worlds guide. In this video I'll be going over how you can best use your Otherworldly Bond to get the most value out of it, and what are some of the tips and tricks you should always be following in this game mode. I'll also be going over the process that you can use to pick the unit that you want to redeem that will give you the best value, and I'll also go over some of the calculations that I've done and my experience so far. And I'm also going to be going over the 10 best units I think at the moment that you could try and pick up. And of course, I'll be giving you a lot of builds that you can look out for. And at the end, I'm going to be showing all of my Binding Worlds Formas that I've redeemed so far. So in February 2025, on the 8th-year anniversary of FEH, we got our first free Otherworldly Bond, and this has no expiry date. So just take your time. There's no compulsion to use this right at this moment, and I see a lot of people being in the pressure of spending it right away, but I don't think that's the best way of doing about things, because this item, if you try and buy it, it's worth $55. $55 USD. So the forma you get must be near perfect, and it should be giving you a lot of value and doing everything, maybe even your taxes. And Otherworld Bond cannot be transferred from iOS to Android or vice versa. So if you switch over to a new phone, then you would have to go into the old OS of your old phone and then redeem your Otherworld Bond from there. And in a Binding Worlds event, you can use 2 Otherworld Bonds to redeem 2 Forma units out of a specific event, and random and friend units do appear here, and they appear randomly. There is no set pattern. We do not know anything about the appearance rate, and this game mode does happen every 2 months, and that's why I'm saying that you should be a bit more patient and not compromise with the build that you're trying to get for your favorite unit, because you're going to be getting more chances this year itself. And the Binding Worlds events lasted for 10 days before, but in 2025 it lasted for 20 days, and it is going to be 20 days going forward from what it sounded like in the FEH channel. And even after a Binding World event ends, you're still going to be having one entire month to scout, think over, and contemplate which kind of unit you want to recruit. And you can also see which new banners and skills come out that you may want on that kind of unit. Now, the units that you get out of Binding World are all going to be Forma units. They have the blue border and the blue stars, just like from the ones in Holoforms. So all of these standard Forma rules are going to be applying on these Formas as well. And I get this asked a lot, and yes, you can merge Formas into Formas. So if you got some Forma in a Holoforms and then you got it in Binding Worlds, you can merge both of those Formas, and the Formas do not come with any kind of merges. They come unmerged. The builds that I'm going to be showing do have emblem rings, but that's just to give you an idea of the full cohesive build with the ring. And of course, you also don't get the sacred seals, and the resplendent costume also does not come with it unless you have it yourself. So you can click the plus icon when you're trying to redeem a unit, and it will show you exactly the unit you're going to be getting, if you have the resplendent outfit or not, and how many flowers they will come with, which skills they will come with. And as Catria unfortunately cannot be recruited even in Binding Worlds, and just like in the Holoforms, getting rearmed Formas is not something that is recommended, because you cannot fodder or duplicate their skills. So they cannot even do their basic function, and that's why you should be avoiding getting them as Formas. Even if you like them a lot, I think just merging them and then using their fodder is going to be a lot better. And when you do merge a 5-star unit with a gold border into a Forma unit that say you got from Holoforms or Binding World, then all of their skills, merges, flowers, and even the ascended assets and the aid accessory is going to be getting transferred to that Forma. But the exception of these Binding Worlds Formas is that you can have them with their primary boon and bane, because you get them at unmerge. So whatever person from which you're getting that unit, what boon and bane they have, you're also going to be getting that, and then you're going to be merging your unit on top of it. And only units until version 6.11 can be formatted as of making this video. So that is until the banner of Embla and Legendary Veronica, and before that we did get the Ninja Camilla banner. So all of those units are going to be something you can try and get, but anything beyond that you're not going to be able to get, like book 7 onwards. And any kind of format that is recruitable is going to be having the Otherworld Bond icon on the top right of its box. So you don't even have to check if this unit is from the version that is available to be recruited or not. The game already shows that to you. And the reason why Binding World Formas are so sought after is because they save a lot of resources. Not only they come with insanely premium skills, ideally, I mean, you should be getting the ones that have them, but they also always come with the max flowers. It doesn't matter if the other person has given them the max flowers or not. When you redeem them yourself, they're always going to be coming with the max flowers, and it is a huge thing for the older units because it takes thousands upon thousands of flowers to max out the stats of these units, especially infantry unit, and we can never have enough flowers for them. So getting a Binding World Forma can also help you optimize that, and their summoner's name is actually going to be showing up on the screen as well, but this is something you can turn off in the settings. And keep in mind that the name that is shown here is only from the time when you recruit them. It is not something that is dynamic, so if you're thinking maybe the person that you got this forma from might change their name to something that is not appropriate and you don't really want to have that on your unit, then there's absolutely no reason to worry about that. You can just turn it off, and even if you don't, the name is going to be static. And another reason why Binding Worlds Formas are so good is because they can be a complete package. They can come with their arcane weapons and their attune skills if the original summoner has given that to them. So a lot of times people would just replace the preferred weapon of the units that they're offering with an arcane weapon for more value, and even give them an attune skill. So this can save you a lot of resources, and you're also going to be getting their base skills as well as per usual. So don't worry if you don't see a preferred skill on some kind of unit. It is going to be there that you can easily equip. You cannot recruit multiples of the same unit in that single Binding Worlds event. So you cannot get 2 Brave Ikes with your 2 Otherworldly Bond in that one event. You can only get 1, and then when the next Binding World starts, you can get another Forma. So you can just merge your old Forma into your new Forma with the updated skills. The Formas you get out of this game mode are not going to be giving you any kind of blessings if they're Legendary or Mythics, and they're certainly not going to be giving you florets if they're Ascended. And as I said before, rearmed units are not the best units to be recruited because you cannot even use their arcane inheritance and pass off their skill to someone else, and you obviously cannot forma your own sent proxy unit that you offer to other people. And that's why it is recommended to get your own unit as soon as you see it, because that way it is going to be getting eliminated from the list and it is not going to be showing up after that. So you should always be having your own sent proxy unit in your team. Now, when it comes to doing things in Binding World, you will just have to step on the Divine Asker Gate, the blue gate, and here you're offered 4 units that you can swap with. The first slot can be a friend unit randomly, again, no set pattern, and the first unit can also be your own unit. And as I said, you should be getting that immediately when you see it. There are also going to be random players, and you can even find units that you cannot even recruit if you're unlucky. And keep in mind that this game mode has absolutely no stakes, even less stakes than Hall of Forms. So as long as you have stepped on the blue gate, even if you lose, you will still have that swapped unit in your team. If you face something like a 99 stats Nidhogre, it really doesn't matter. You should just go in, swap the unit, and then surrender. And if you have Fate Pass and you go back in the time, then that doesn't change the units that are going to be appearing in that map. And you can also select the same unit again with the green box that is offered, and that will just level up your unit, and your unit will get an extra action in that Binding Worlds map, so you could just use that offensively. Every community, be it online or real life, small or big, has got its unsaid rules, and I'm going to be bringing you up to the speed with all of those rules for this game mode so that you can focus on the mutual benefit. So you can choose the unit that represents you in Binding Worlds by clicking on the Set Send Proxy. So this unit is going to be getting offered to other people, and then they could try and Forma your unit or even add you as your friend. And it is common courtesy and recommended to send your most premium unit available that you've got right now. Other people are going to be giving you valuable units if they seek valuable units themselves, and you should be equipping them with the best skills that you have on the unit. Now, I don't really mean that you should be going out of your way and spend like 1,000 orbs trying to get the optimal skill on that unit that you're not even going to be using, but just the best skills that are possible for you right now. For example, I've got my Ear as my proxy unit. A lot of people are going to be finding value in her because she is a mythic unit, and a lot of people have plus and merged her over the years, and she is a unit that can be part of your light mythic core, and you need a lot of modern skills to get the most utility out of her. Now, I've got the perfect skills for her except for her slot A. I have got Sea Dual Flying, which is not the best. I could definitely try and, do better with Slice the Sparrow, Firestorm boost, or even Crystalline Water, but I don't really have that fodder. And Sea Dual Flying 4 is not exactly a bad skill. It is still functional with the idea of air because the potent skills basically reduce your HP by 10 for the hex traps. So it is important for you to be at 56 HP or above so that you're immune to any kind of trap. And for that, Sea Dual Flying does help, and it can also help you score better in Mjolnir Strike. So it's not the worst skill, and it's not a dirt common skill that could be found on multiple units. It is only present on Ninja Gren. So this is the best build that I can make right now. So just offer whatever seems reasonable to you that can be premium and valuable to other people, and just do not include any kind of base kit skills on these units like inheritable skills. The unit already comes with it, so you could just have another skill for the value. And usually people that are looking for the best Forma units are not going to be picking the units that have still their inheritable skills. And you should also unequip the Sing and Dance skills on your refreshers. The reason being is that you can only have one dancer on your team. You cannot have two of them, and if you have even a single dancer on your team, then the game is not even going to be offering you another dancer. So, for example, if someone is hunting for Peony and Plumeria both, then they are not going to be getting Plumerias if you give them some kind of Peony that has still a dance skill equipped. They cannot unequip that themselves. So just give them some kind of assist or rally skill, it doesn't matter. And you can also send the Forma that you got in the previous Binding Worlds, basically trying to forward it in a way, or even a lot of the old holoforms that are gone now. It is very important to make sure that the unit that you're offering is actually recruitable in Binding Worlds, meaning that they are within the realm of the pool of the units that are until version 6.11. So if you put some kind of Brave Felix, then people cannot really recruit that. So they're not going to be able to get much value, and you have now costed them a draw that they could have gotten, maybe a unit with good skills that they could have recruited. And on that topic, a lot of people are going to be memeing around and goofing around by unequipping all of the skills on the unit that they're offering, and it's going to be a super old Gen 1 unit, or maybe it has got like very bad skills purposely, or the base kit skills. And I'm always of the mindset of blaming the game instead of the player, but still, until the developers do better and make it so that you cannot get these kinds of units, we should still try and offer each other good units. And if you meme around like this, then please understand that people may just remove you from their friends list because they want to have options in Binding Worlds so that they can get the most value out of this item, which is really, really valuable. So this is gonna be your first impression on many people, and you can get a bunch of friends through Binding Worlds and simply by offering good units here. And even if you're not on social media and like Discords and stuff, this is still a way of having really strong and active players in your friends list that are going to be giving you a lot of value in other game modes as well, like, you know, rival domains, grand conquest, and also you know, allegiance battles, pawns of Loki, and you can even, you know, play against them in ether raids without having any kind of stake. You can just test out your favorites, and you can try and add the friends that have the characters that you want before the event or on the day that the event starts. And that's why you should not be rushing in with your torches in the earlier days, because people are still setting up and updating their units in the first few days, and you're going to be getting 3 stamina per day upon the Fey reset. And if you don't play, then that 3 stamina is not going to be stacking, so you should make sure to play every day. In Binding Worlds, you cannot have 2 copies of the same unit on your team, so you cannot run 2 Brave Lins or 2 Reinhardts, but you can actually use this to your advantage because you can choose the common units that appear a lot in Binding Worlds, like Brave Edelgard or Brave Dimitri, if you do not want them to show up, because the game will stop offering you the unit in the list, and you're going to be seeing the other units. Brave Edelgard and Brave Dimitri are really popular as characters. They're good units still, and they were also part of Holoforms a while back, so that's why people are offering them. But at the moment, I don't really want them because I also got the Forma copies of them in that Holoform, so that's why I selected both of them. So you can keep 2 common units on your team, 1 unit that is your own proxy unit, and then I use my 4th unit to swap between the units that I maybe want to redeem, that maybe have some value. And that is why you should be only swapping with the units that actually have some good skills, so that they do not clog up your list when you're trying to decide which unit you should redeem. And because if you pick a unit that has got the base kit of theirs, and if you want to redeem that unit, then until you get rid of them from your team, they're not going to be showing up again in the list. And it's not all that uncommon in Binding Worlds to be offered the same unit by different people. For popular units, it's definitely going to be happening multiple times, so that's why at first you want to be a bit more mindful of this, but as you play for longer, this is going to be becoming a second nature. And if you are a free-to-play player and this is your only one Otherworld Bond, then I highly suggest you to be patient and aim for like the near perfect unit and near perfect build that is worthy of this, because this is not even something like a Forma Soul. This is like 10 times the value of it, because you get Dragon Flowers, the rearmed weapons, attuned skills and everything. So do not compromise when it comes to getting good units. In my opinion, you should not be going for the outdated skills. And I'm not saying you should be aiming for like absolute 100% perfection, but maybe aim for like 90% perfection. As long as it's mostly functional and usable and optimal skills for those units, then you should, you know, try and spend your Otherworld Bond, and you should just try and shortlist the units that are going to be giving you the most value. Now, because you get so many units in this game mode, you might have a bit of analysis paralysis. So the best way that I can describe who you should be redeeming in a sentence is to redeem the units that you will not regret later. Now, this can mean different things for different players depending on how you like to play the game. So this may be the favorite unit of yours or the units that you like, or you could even go after legendary or mythic units that do matter for their merges, and you could try and use them competitively. And you can also select the units that are your merge projects, or you've already plussed and merged and you're just trying to update them. And there are many useful and unique support units that you could try and pick up that still do not have 1-to-1 complete power creep right now in the game, so they can also provide you value. And even combat units that can make your life easy by killing the modern threats like Nidhogger, Duorea are worth picking up, because they can just make your life easy in different game modes. Duo and Harmonics also provide you with the value, and they are pretty hard to merge. They do have their Duo and Harmonic buttons, which do give them a bit of an edge compared to the normal units, especially in a game mode like Summoner Duels. And you should of course try and get the optimal viable skills, the modern skills. You should not be settling for attack speed ideal in 2025. And you should also keep in mind the units that are going to be getting a future refine, like Elamine, for example, who's going to be getting refined this month. So picking her before her refine is probably not the best thing because we do not know what her refine is going to be doing. And if you already have a Forma unit from a Hall of Forms or a Binding World, then you just compare the value of the new skills and how much of a difference it is going to be making. I can certainly understand that it can be hard to keep up with the game many times with the skill descriptions, the amount of new skills and things you have to remember on top of your head. So if you're not sure about the unit that you want to spend your Otherworld Bond on, then you could just ask for second opinions from your friends or just really anyone online. A lot of people do ask me on my Twitter and my YouTube comments, and I do try and reply to as many as I can. And do not redeem any kind of format that just has random premium skills. Like Lagu's Friend is a good skill, but Lagu's Friend is not a good skill on every single unit on the game, so that skill should be fitting the playstyle of the unit. Stacking up speed on a unit with base 16 speed isn't really going to be doing many favors in 2025, and again, like I said, it can be hard to keep up and to know which skills are optimal and which skills are modern. So again, taking second opinions is going to be helping you. And when Choose Your Legends happens in August, in that time frame when the Binding Worlds happen, you can actually wait until the update for Choose Your Legends is out because we get the Dragon Flower increase at that time. So if you wait, you can actually redeem the Binding Worlds Forma with the new increased flower limit. So it can help you save some Dragon Flowers, and again, that is going to be optimal. And waiting until the end of a Binding Worlds event is always going to be optimal. There's no reason not to wait because you may get better units or you may even get the better build for the exact unit you're looking for. So preemptively redeeming before the event is even over is not going to be the best. And this way you can also scout for the latest skills that just came out on a banner when the event was active. For example, we just got the Rearm Nell banner with Arcane Fel Arts being the new Arcane Dragon Breath, and there's also active Lookout from Aided Yunaka, which is the optimal skill on many of the dagger units that are trying to be offensive. I usually do not redeem my Binding Worlds Forma this soon, and I mainly did it to have some footage to show for this guide. I'm going to be sharing my data that I collected from this event, and this can give you an idea of what to expect. So this is pure anecdotal data. I do not have a really big sample size. I tried to do this with my free-to-play account because I was sure from the start that I'm absolutely not going to be spending my Otherworld Bond this soon, like on the first Binding World with my free-to-play account. So I tried to get every single friend unit that showed up for me, and we do not have the official rates of friend units. We do not have any kind of baseline appearance rate like for the banner units, so this is only something I can infer from my experience. So a big misconception that many people still have is that eliminating most of your friends except for that one friend is going to be making it easy for you to get that specific one unit in Binding World, but that does not seem to happen. The amount of friends that you encounter in this game mode is not dependent on how many friend units you have, so just removing your friends from the list doesn't really do much in reality. That appearance rate is going to be staying the same. Of course, your pool is going to be becoming smaller, so don't worry too much about the amount of friends that you have got. And again, it's completely luck based. So in this 2025 February event, I ran into 23 friend units that were not repeats, and usually you don't really run into the same friend unit, at least I don't really remember myself. And I've got 200 full friend list, and you basically get 96 draws of having a unique friend unit because only the first slot unit can be the friend unit. The other three are not going to be the friend unit. So if you count, you're going to be having 96 chances, and based on the amount of times I encountered them, the probability was around 11.32% of getting the specific friend unit that I was looking for with how often they appear. So it's roughly one friend unit every 4 draws. It could be any kind of friend unit you cannot really control. And the good thing is that this event lasted for a bit of a longer time, so that did help me a bit because I got a bit more friends because of the extra days. So I hope they keep this up, and if they don't, we're gonna be sending the feedback, and I think they should keep this 20 days event length because we do have more units now in the Binding Worlds pool that we could try and redeem, so it does make sense. And basically you're gonna be shown 384 units in total in Binding World, counting the random units and the friend units, and one of them is always going to be your unit, and that's why you should be picking that. Everything else is going to be random. So from my entire selection of the units that I got, only 30 units from that entire event I would consider like good formas that I would maybe like to redeem. And out of them, if I really wanted to critically analyze them and go for the absolute perfection or like near perfect formas, which I did mention before, only 8 out of those 30 would be the ones that I would count. And I am showing you all of them on a screen right now. All of the other ones were from the random players. And out of the 8 near perfect formas that I'm counting, only 3 of them were from my friends list. The other 5 were completely random. So your luck plays a big role in Fire Emblem in general. And I'm gonna be going over the process now of how you can select which forma you should be redeeming. So I want to give an example here, which I was talking about before. So I did redeem the Forma Edelgard in the Three Houses Revival, and I was able to get her with the perfect build with Shield Fighter and with the skills I didn't have. And I did encounter another Forma Edelgard because she is really common and she just has some extra skills on top of the skills that this person probably got in the Hall of Forms. And if you look at it carefully, it is basically just the skills from Rearmed Thiadzi and Reposition Gate from Aided Dagger. That's pretty much it. But this doesn't really make that big of a difference in my opinion because she is still going to be tanking really well even with the build I have on the left, and the build on the right is a bit more optimal, sure. I mean, Arcane Giant Axe does give you the flat damage reduction, but it is not the best use of the resources because I have already given her 25 Dragon Flowers. I already have a premium skill like Shield Fighter, which is the main thing which can make her tank a lot of the modern units. And that's why I am going to be passing on this kind of Edelgard that I come across. And Rearmed Thiadzi is also in the Divine Code 6, so if I really want, I could give her these skills eventually. And then I also have this Forma Brave Dimitri that I did also redeem in that Three Houses Revival, and I already have him with Legu's Friend. And here we have got the Binding Worlds Forma Dimitri on the right, and just like Edelgard, he does have a bit different skills. Here he has got an Attune skill in Time Pulse Echo, and he has got Boulder, his best special. And Fortifications is there because it can help you set up the stone terrains, but in my opinion, Dimitri doesn't really have much of a player phase. He's not going to be having an easier time setting that up and initiating on the units. Now, Boulder does change your matchups, and I know because I did run a lot of simulations when the Revival Holoforms was happening, so this could be of value to many people, but again, this is present in Divine Code 6 on Ninja Diamant. I could eventually give this to him, and Fortifications doesn't really matter much compared to the bonus doubler 4 I've got, and Time Pulse Echo is certainly useful in triggering the specials, but it's not like we don't have the external pulse support of many of the preempt pulse units and even Time Pulse 4 support that someone like Halloween Asker can give. So I'm not going to be personally redeeming a unit just for their attune skill and just for their special. And as for the Boulder special, I know for sure I'm going to be duplicating it with my rearmed and attune unit, so he's going to be getting it. And now let's compare a really different, drastic comparison. So I got this Micaiah, the original version, and one of the earliest Binding Worlds. Back then, we didn't even have a lot of good slotty skills. Remote Mirror was the best one, and we didn't even have tier 4 tempo, let alone resonance. So if I try and upgrade my Micaiah to the one on the right side, I get an updated generic weapon that does a lot of true damage. I get Frost Moon for the piercing and the entire optimal build for her. I also get 10 extra Dragon Flowers, which I still haven't given her, and I haven't plus in Merger, so that can also help me go towards the plus 10 merge project. But of course, I would say that the merges are not the most important part of your unit is not a legendary or mythic unit in my opinion. And following the same logic which I gave before, Frost Moon Pulse Ploy is from Athos. That is kind of hard to get. He's not in Hero Rises. He's of course not in Divine Codes. Even Resonance is not in the Divine Codes as a skill. And then she's got Time Pulse Echo, which is even better. She's got the perfect assist. So this kind of Micaiah would be a substantial upgrade compared to the Brave Edelgard and Brave Dimitri that I showed before that I just recently got in the Hall of Forms. Now this is a method that a lot of people, including me, use to evaluate the Forma units. So Pirate Veronica is one of the most redeemed Forma units officially, all according to the FEH data that they have published officially. And the reason for that is not because she's an insane unit. I wouldn't even say that she is like a top 5 unit in terms of unit strength from the Binding Worlds pool, but the main reason why a lot of people redeem her is because her ideal build is so expensive that you get a lot of value out of redeeming her in the Binding World, and she takes 30 Dragon Flowers. So again, you get a lot of value, and she is a seasonal unit, so you're not always going to be having the chance of getting her or even summoning her. So here, I'm going to be showing 2 builds. On the left side, here I've got a build that I have seen a lot of people get, and then on the right side is the perfect optimal Pirate Veronica build that you could have right now. Now, the way you evaluate this is basically try and think of the fodder that went into this unit and their build, and if you have access to them easily or not. On the left side here, we basically have a disguised Brave Alphonse with her Slot A, Slot B, and Slot C skill. Now, she can work with these skills, sure, but these are not the best or near perfect skills. And she has got no quarter from a Winter Dimitri in Divine Codes 5. No quarter is not bad, but she already gets the full damage reduction piercing out of her weapon, so no quarter is kind of redundant and not really needed on her. I mean, sure, it can give you value, but we do have a better option now. On the right side, I've got her with Attack Defense Excel and Momentum that she got from an Emblem Sigurd. Only he can give this to her right now. And then they have got the Haste Slice from Valentine Dimitri Combat Manual from Divine Code 6, and also Mercy Wing Echo from Attuned Azura. In both of these builds, there is one combat manual used from the Divine Codes, and just because there is a combat manual used, it doesn't mean that this kind of build is less valuable. Of course, we're not trying to arbitrarily chase the rarest skills. It should also be optimal skills. So the reason why the build on the right side is really valuable is because stuff like Momentum 4, Shadow Shift 4 eats up 4 inherit slots. It's really hard to duplicate these skills because we do not have the prerequisite fodder of these skills. So it's not really possible to duplicate all of that fodder just with a cavalry rearmed or attuned unit like Azura. And Mercy Wing Echo is the best attuned skill right now for most of the Cavaliers with this kind of momentum build because they can try and trigger their special. And this kind of Veronica is completely scalp proof because of the amount of special jumps that she gets. And Haste Slice can also give her a lot of flat damage reduction that can help her survive. With my final example, I'm going to be explaining 2 scenarios. So this is an Edelgard fan. They have tried to plus and merge every single Edelgard so far, and they're on their quest of plus and merging the newest Valentine Edelgard. But they also want to update their legendary Edelgard. I mean, she is definitely not the best Edelgard out of the bunch, but she's the fire legendary unit that they would like to use in Arena. Now on the left side is the Binding Worlds Forma that they've got. It is quite optimal and even has the fodder from Attuned Hector and Riam Thiadzi. So they could try and get this Binding Worlds Forma, and even though the main skills they are going to be planning to run are from Valentine Edelgard, it can still prove to be of value because they're trying to plus and merge Valentine Edelgard. They cannot really fodder off her for her skills. Merging is the main priority, and Valentine Edelgard does not get rerun often because she's a seasonal unit, and she does not get rerun even as often as many of the rearmed or attuned units that may be present in Divine Codes or may be present at the certain attuned, ascended, and rearmed banners that happen many times, or on the remix banners where they are sparkable. So she is relatively higher value compared to the other units. So this may be of use to them, but another way of looking at it is that this is Legendary Edelgard, who's a pretty old Legendary unit, and Three Houses Hall of Forms is happening in May of 2025. She's set to be rerunning in that exact same month, along with Legendary Female Byleth, Legendary Claude, and Legendary Male Byleth. All of these are pretty old Legendary units, so there could be a chance that they may be appearing in the Hall of Forms, and you'll be able to get these exact skills in that Hall of Form instead of spending your Binding Worlds Forma. So that is also a factor you could consider with many of these units, because the Hall of Forms that we get are in the set pattern of the release of the games, so they're always going to be happening in that order. As for the Hall of Forms revival reruns, you already see the options for the voting, so you can try and assume which are the possible options, and then you could try and wait and see if the Hall of Forms you want wins or not, and then make your decision. And that's why there are a couple of factors, and asking for second opinions can help you sometimes, because you may not be remembering every single thing in that moment and every single factor. So it can help you make an informed decision, and as I said, you should be redeeming a Forma unit that you're not going to be regretting. Now, there are a lot of units that are present in the Binding Worlds pool up to version 6.11, like I said, but here I've tried to sort them out based on their rarity and their value. So this way you can have a bit more of a clear view at the most important units. So the Mythics are one of the best ways of using your Forma, because you will have to use them in your Mythic core in Light and Astra season. They do matter for the scoring, and these are long-term projects that people make. And there are many extremely good Mythic units here that have gotten amazing remix, and they're about to get a remix and refine this year itself. And for the Ether Raid's defense, I mean, it's not that important to have the merges, but still, many of these might be your favorite characters, and again, many of them like Medius are about to get a remix. The legendary units are also in abundance here, but keep in mind that these units also get run in the Hall of Forms. So if there is a chance of them appearing like Legendary Male Byleth or Legendary Female Byleth or Legendary Edelgard, then you should be watching out for that. Legendary Olm, for example, is going to be appearing in March's Revival Hall of Form, so you can just get the perfect skills for him. And updating your older legendary units with the new arcane weapons and all of the dragon flowers is going to be satisfying, because these are some of the favorite characters of so many players. Duos and harmonics are seasonal units, and they do have an extra thing going for them. A lot of them are going to be getting a weapon refine, but the seasonal refines are kind of slow, and a lot of them, if they're a dancer, they're probably not going to be getting a refine. And there are also many of the 5-star units that are either Braves, which you might be having as a long-term merge project, and the units get the refine out of order, so they do have the resurgence a bit early on. And there are many 4-star special raid units that you could just get randomly in your summons or from the arena tickets, and some of these actually have pretty good refines that you could try and make use of. So if you have one of these units at like very high merges and you also happen to like them, then you could try and get them. And there are many seasonal units that still have workable refines that you could try and make use of, and many of these actually got these refines quite recently, like Halloween Xane, and the other ones like Summer Micaiah and Claude are going to be pretty far back in the schedule. There are many free-to-play units as well, and these are the merge projects that many people did many years ago. Some of them have gotten a recent refine. You sometimes want to also update them with the modern skills. Being a beast unit or being a dragon, a lot of them do have access to many of the really good and super premium skills that you could try and get, and many of them are going to be in line to getting refined, and these again follow a set pattern. You can expect them in the same order that I've showed here. And many of these demotes like Luthier, Miranda are just about to get a weapon refine in a couple of months. So I'm going to be going over the builds of many of these units. But now let's take a look at the 10 best units that you could try and pick up from Binding Worlds right now, in my opinion. Of course, this may change depending on the remixes and refines in the future, but these are pretty safe picks and they have been valuable picks for many years now. People still redeem them, and these are going to be universally useful units that can function in many strategies. By the way, this is not an ordered list. This is just the collection of 10 units that I think are most valuable. So Plumeria is an Astra Mythic Dancer, and I think that she has gotten some extra value now because she can give the guaranteed follow-up status from her dance, and this way you can get the follow-up attack along with the brave attacks of triangle attack or dual strike with a lingering nuke, and then you can attack 4 times even with many of the slower units. And if you have Firestorm Dance, then you also get the Desperation and you get to hit a lot of the non-hardy bearing tanks. And even the Hexblade status can help you against many of the high defense nukes like Emblem Sigurd, so because of his lopsided bulk, hitting his resistance can help you get rid of him faster. And you can also try and run many of the other skills like Ploy Discord, but because she's in the Astra season, she's always going to be going up against Freyr that is going to be cleansing these kinds of out of start turn skills. So they're not the best skills to be used in ether raids on her, but still you could try and get some value out of the weapon like Arcane Blood Gang or an Attune skill, and this can basically give you more flexibility. So for example, if I want to use her in a Gale Force team and if I want to use Wings of Mercy, then I can have that along with Firestorm Dance. And nowadays units do a lot of things, and if I already have a unit that can debuff the enemies, then I don't really need the debuffs out of her dance or even the status effects, like the Hexblade status for example. So I always have the option of going to the vanilla dance and then equipping the Attune skill that I got on her Forma. Similarly, Peony is also one of the best value units that you could try and get because of being a light mythic dancer. For her status effects now do compete with the status that Rune can give, because he can also give the order status at start of the turn, but she gives the null debuff status as well, which can certainly be helpful as you're going to be facing Larather that just inflicts the panic on your units. There isn't really any kind of new arcane blue tome that we have like for Plumeria, but Devoted Cup Plus is a pretty good supported weapon that can inflict the speed and resistance and discord debuff on the enemies, and it doesn't have a resistance check, so she can just do it easily. And in her season, there's no dark mythic that functions exactly the same way like Freyr, but still, you're going to be facing many of the off-season Freyrs in top tier teams, because not having Freyr pretty much means that you're going to be auto-losing to Rearm Layla and the lingering sniping, so watch out for that. And Fortrace Echo is also an Attune skill that you could try and get on these dancers if you don't want to use Firestorm Dance, but nowadays I find Firestorm Dance so useful with the lingering nuking with the Desperation status that I think it is my go-to skill for the slot B of these dancers. And another unit that people have gotten value out of for literally years is Bright Catria, and she has come back into the meta because of the lingering nukes. So because of having Emblem Lin and lingering nukes yourself, you're going to be able to snipe from far away and by staying near your allies, so it becomes pretty easy to abuse the triangle attack status. And even just a one-off copy of Brad Catria is going to be opening up more strategies for you as you get to quad attack and brave attack with many of the nukes. And you can also try and get the detect skill on her. I think this is a really good skill because it lets you debuff in the middle of the turn, which cannot be cleansed as easily as Freyr does it for the at sort of turn skills. And it can give you the exposure status, and that is going to be 10 true damage per hit, and that is very powerful if you're quad attacking. You also get the lull speed defense support out of it, so you're able to ignore the valuable defense buffs that your enemy unit may have from their safe tanks like Attuned Hector or even Neonid Ogre. And having the Crux skill on her in her slot C is amazing because she can give you the guaranteed follow-up attack against the units in that 3 rows and 3 column range. So that's obviously very powerful with the brave attacking that she can provide to you. But keep in mind that if you have an equally built Winter Cordelia or Ice Stripe Thea, then they're just going to be having better combat because they have better weapons. And I would say that they also have better support because Cordelia lets you get the brave hits with just one ally. So what you can do is reposition with Emblem Lin in Summoner Duels, and then you threaten a large amount of area and you're able to get the brave hit with just one ally beside you that you have used to reposition Emblem Lin forward. Ice Trap Thea also provides you with the Canto 1 status, and I would say that that's a bit more useful than the Otter status when it comes to lingering nuking, because you're not going to be warping unless you have some kind of extraction skills, and you're going to be wanting to have the Canto 1 so that you can position better after sniping something. Another unit that has come back into the meta thanks to the lingering nuking and Emblem Lin herself is Ymir. Now, she didn't have the best of the miracles when she came out, but the thing about her is that she can cleanse with her preferred weapon in middle of the turn, so we may have other units that can provide a miracle like Fallen Maria or even Duorea, but the thing is that Maria does not provide you with the cleansing in middle of the turn, and Duorea's miracle is only present in the enemy phase, so you cannot use it for player phase nuking, and the preferred slot C skill of Ymir in Ever Living Domain does give miracle to your lingering nukes, so this can be really powerful because you can try and survive the Hardy Bearing Far Saviors and then proceed to double or quad them. So this can be very powerful with the units that have a lot of true damage, and they can just overpower the enemy units because at the 4th hit they're not going to be getting their shield fighter damage reduction, and they would have likely exhausted the damage reduction out of their armored beacon or the twin save skill. So because of living the hit of the Hardy Bearing Far Savior, you're able to finish them off with a quad hit in a lot of the scenarios. Now I'm talking about her preferred skill and preferred weapon, but this build doesn't have it, and the main reason for it is that it can provide you with more value, so she can try and run Barricade and Summoner Duels many times if you do not want the miracle for your team. So again, more options is never bad. And you can also try and stack up her visible defense so that she doesn't get hit by Larathar's forced assigned decoy. So if she gets hit by that, then she's going to be functioning as a near savior and dying to a lot of the modern melee nukes. And you don't want her to die because you want her to provide the miracle to your, maybe frontliner, or even provide the warp blocking if you're running Barricade. And if you get rid of her slot C skill that is preferred, you also get to run an attune skill. I mean, it's not the biggest deal because the echo skills are not that good for Cavaliers, but still, I mean, it is going to be an option even in the future if we get some better ones. And again, detect skill is so good on so many of these support units because you can inflict the debuffs in middle of the turn, and this is really good for just making sure that you can kill with your nukes harder. And then Ymir supports your tanks with either Barricade or with her cleansing or with her preferred slotsy skill. As I said before, combat units that can make your life easy by killing the annoying tanks that have so much flat damage reduction is also worth picking, and one of them is going to be Mythic Thorr. Now she is a really strong melee nuke because she has got the armor effective damage, so she can try and kill stuff like newer Nidhoggers pretty easily, and she has got the damage reflection, so her damage output can be ridiculous if you stack up a lot of the skills like Excel, Haste Slice that can give you the unpierceable damage reduction. So that's why these kinds of modern and expensive skills work really well with her playstyle. And even though she can trigger her specials easily, momentum gives her a lot of true damage, which can help her immediately trigger Haste Slice even if she's going to be facing some kind of Scowl unit. And that is going to be happening because Duorea does have Scowl built in her weapon, so the special jumps or the pre-impulse of it does help. And she has got the Canto 2 in her weapon, so because of that you have a lot of flexibility even in Ether Raids, because you're able to run past inner slot B and still warp with Celica Ring to just bypass any of the Barricade or higher lower ground warp blocking. So I find that really useful as well on her as a melee nuke. And because of her Warbreaker plus support, not only she can enable the warping of her allies, but the pre-impulse that she provides and the special charges that she gives out, you're able to trigger Astra, Miracle, and a lot of the high cooldown specials really easily with many of your nukes, and especially the lingering nukes. The only free-to-play unit that you're going to be finding in the list of these 10 units is going to be Seteth, because he is a free-to-play god and the best free-to-play tank support right now. I wouldn't say he's the best tank support because there are some competition now with Legendary Sakura and with Elamine getting a remix. And Elamine is another unit that you could try and pick up from Binding Worlds, depending on how her refine goes. But the reason why Seteth is so good is because he can provide the 7 flat damage reduction to the allies in 3 spaces of him on the first attack that they take, and he also gives +8 stats and the dull effect in the combat. So your tanks are able to ignore the visible buffs of the enemies, and this can often free you up from running something like Wily Fighter or any kind of buff ignoring skills, and maybe try and slot in some other skill that gives you another effect, like maybe debuffing your enemies or getting rid of the debuffs on yourself, or even giving you the immunity to the debuffs. And the reason why he's so good as a support is because he is a flying unit, so he can run Breath of Life 4 for the healing, and he can run Soaring Echo to enable the warping on top of his flat damage reduction support that he gives out. And he can also run Ground Order Sacred Seal because the armor units do not get the warping out of Soaring Echo, so with the order status you're able to give that to them, and usually armor units are going to be the main flag bearers when it comes to tanking a lot of the times, and it's also really easy to plus and merge him, but I think you should be focusing on him with the supportive skills. I often see people pick up Wyvern Rift on him in a slot B, but he's not a combat unit. He is mainly there to support, and Detect or Snack skill in a slot B is going to be helpful. And as I explained, Detect is amazing. It does overlap a bit because he already ignores the visible buff of the enemies with a support, but you get the exposure debuff and you also get lull speed defense, so you also can run these snack skills like attack defense snack, which can help your tanks, and you also inflict the sabotage status on the enemy. And with haste slice and excel, he is able to have enough bulk to survive in the player phase if he has to go in himself and challenge some kind of enemy. And with all of this bulk, at least he's going to be able to survive and live to support his allies, and that can be a big thing in Summoner Duels. There are also other skills like Crux and Shadow Shift that you could try and run if you already have Breath of Life 4 on him. So he is easily one of the most insane free-to-play weapon refines that we have ever gotten in this game. And then we have gotten Brave Chrom here on this list. He is a Brave unit and he has proved his worth in all of these years because he is just so versatile as a Cavalier. He just copies any kind of visible status effect that is in the meta, like Gallop status from Emblem Sigurd, and he gets like 5 movement. And because of his high mobility, he can threaten a large amount of area. You could use him with different teams, and he gets the extra action out of his assist, so that can give you the action economy. And he did get a weapon refine that is still pretty good for a unit like him that was already really good. So he's able to have uncapped stat potential with his refine. As many bonus status effects that you'll stack up on him, the more stats he's going to be getting. His true damage is capped though at 16, but still I think that it is good amount of true damage to stack up with momentum and try and kill Nidhoggers and many of the flat damage reduction tanks like Duorea, because he also has the armor effective damage just like Thorr, and that can make your life easy. You also get to stack him up with a lot of bulk because he is easily able to have Haste Slice, his Excel skill, and he gets a lot of stats with his Refine. So he can be deceptively bulky, and he can even run like Potent to get the 3rd hit, or Detect to give some support, or even Fatal Smoke to ignore the non-special miracles, which again Duorea has got. And you could now try and outsource the Potent status to him with Legendary Ira if you run her with him. So you could try and run Momentum to get the true damage out of it and just get the synergy with the high mobility skills, and the true damage can be a really deadly thing with his firepower and his effective damage. Pirate Tibarn is one of the best supportive units that we have gotten in this game with his Refine because he can compress the role of a support unit so well because of being a flying beast, and he has got access to a ton of skills. So the reason why he is really good as a support is because he can inflict the frozen status on his enemies, and frozen status is really powerful with many of the high defense and high speed tanks like Attune Temera and Desert Ike. And what it basically does is that it makes it harder for the enemy to double your tank because of the defense difference, and makes it easier for your tanks to double them. And this frozen effect does stack up with the other frozen effects that they may have in their preferred weapon or skills, and this also stacks up with the Rift effects of Wyvern Rift, Pegasus Rift, of Ed Scales, and also Clever Fighter. So Frozen is extremely powerful status for tanking, and on top of it, he provides the warp blocking with the Barricade, and he provides the warping with Soaring Echo, and you can also run Detect Skill on him. Now, I know, this is another time of showing the Detect Skill, and it seems like it overlaps with his support. He already debuffs the enemy with the exposure status, but the good thing about the Detect Skill is that because it gives the lull speed defense to any unit on the entire map, if the enemy has got the exposure status on them, it can actually help you get the lull speed defense right from the get-go without using any of his action. And a lot of times you're going to be facing cleansing that gets applied at sort of the turn, and you can apply the exposure status again with the Detect Skill in middle of the turn, which is a lot harder to try and get rid of. His combat is decent, but mainly you're going to be supporting with him, and you can try and make him transform easily with a Fortune skill. We don't have attack defense Fortune yet, so attack speed Fortune can work, but he does want to have sturdy base to make use of his defense. Nobody would have expected Ronan here a couple of months back, but he got an amazing weapon refine, and he's just not another nuke out there. The thing about him is that he is an extremely unique nuke, and he can provide some support. So he has got that 3 space drive, 7 flat damage reduction like Seteth, and he also gives out the Null Guard support. Now he can only run Soaring Echo, he can run Breath of Life, but he is going to be mainly used for the combat compared to Seteth, who's mainly used for the support. And the reason why he is so powerful is because of his weapon refine that lets him have the resistance version of Tamara's Sandstorm. So with his resistance, he does so much damage on his special triggers that he can kill enemies without, quadding and just by doubling them. And this build tries to do that. And Lagu's Friend is needed with that because he gets even more flat damage reduction, so he can actually survive a lot of things because of the flat damage reduction based on his resistance, and he gets even more true damage added into his special triggers, and he gets the full piercing out of it. So he does not need Deadeye or anything like that, but you may pick up Curve Shot just for the value. But overall, this build is going to be really good because you pre-charge your Glacies with Pulse Deploy and Time Pulse Echo, and then you snipe something with Lindring, and in the combat, you can try and survive their counterattack with Lagu's Friend, and then because of the special jumping, the Lagu's Friend style pre-impulse that he gets, and because he has got Null Guard, his Glacies is going to be again ready, so he can just nuke another time with a Glacies, and that's going to be really hard for a lot of far-save tanks to survive. So he's one of the few units that wants to stack up his speed and resistance instead of attack and speed or attack and resistance, so you can pick up those skills. And Ronan, even at low merges, is going to be able to function really well with his power. It's just that he is an old unit, so the Dragon Flowers you get also give you value. And then finally on this list, I've got Halloween Xane. So he's a very fun unit, but more than that, he is a unique unit who does not need any kind of merges to function. He just copies the stats from his allies, and now it's much better with the weapon refine. And he can be a really tanky mage and also function as an Omnitank. And one of the biggest things that is going for him right now is the fact that he can function as an anti-Larather unit. By this, I mean that he can use his lower visible defense and more preferably minus defense IV to attract the force assigned decoy of Larather away from Xane's allies on himself. So Xane becomes a far savior with his low defense, but in reality, he's going to be copying the stats from his allies, and he's actually really bulky. He gets the flat damage reduction out of his weapon, he has got the scowl built in it, and Lagu's Friend is perfect because he doesn't have a minus on special cooldown weapon, so he can use it with Flare, and this kind of anti-Larather tech can be very useful in Summoner Duels and also in Aether Raid's offense in the light season. So it's just amazing how a 4-star focus unit becomes a unit to be recommended in Binding Worlds, and he has got such a good weapon refine that he's able to counter someone like Lerather, who's very oppressive, and because he has got close counter in his Refine, he can also retaliate back to any kind of Lindring user or even Emblem Lin herself. So you run Hardy Bearing, you disable their Desperation, and then you just kill them as you're going to be functioning as a Far Savior. A lot of times Emblem Lin and the Lindring nukes are combined and they are run with Lerather. So this is the perfect thing to counter it, and this is the perfect build. You need Null Counter Disrupt Echo. Do not pick up a Xane if he doesn't have this attuned skill, because Lerather inflicts the flash status on his enemies, so you need the Null Counter Disrupt Echo to actually counterattack. There's just no compromising it, and he is so flexible because he gets his own null follow-up with the Slotty. He also gets extra stats with the Time Pulse Edge, so you don't need Time Pulse Echo, and that attuned slot is very coveted for him. So that's going to be my curated list of the 10 units that I think are the strongest right now from the Binding Worlds pool. As more units get refined and remixes, and maybe some of them will kick out the other units from this list, but I'll probably try and make an update video whenever that happens. And these are pretty safe picks. This list was not in order, and there's some units that were very close to being in the 10 best units list, and these are those 3 units. So Pirate Veronica, as I said, is one of the most redeemed Forma units for her value, and is this not the value that she is going to be offering? She is the only other unit in the game outside of Emblas who can inflict the feud status on the enemy, and inflicting that feud status on the enemy means that you can disable the support like of Seteth, or even stop them getting the brave hits with Desert Marissa, so it can actually be really good with her weapon. And she is going to be scowl proof with all of the preempt pulses that she stacks up. There's no dragon right now in the game who can scowl her successfully, because she has got -6 preempt pulse with this build at max. Even if you're a dragon with like a triple scowl and with Hush Spectrum, you're not going to be able to avoid this haste slice. Duo Thorr is a unit that has proved her worth over the time, even though she is a bit outdated now and she doesn't pack as much of a punch with her specials or the AoE specials. She is still always going to be useful because of her duo button, which instantly gets rid of all of the visible status effects, and that is always relevant in Summoner duels because we have like a million visible status effects. So this is a really great way of just erasing it from far away. She also inflicts the stall status on the enemies, so she can restrict the movement of many of these Sigurd Ring units. And even though she doesn't have a guaranteed follow-up attack in her weapon, and Frost Moon would not like it, Slimer is still a slotty skill I would recommend, because Slimer gives you the true damage, and an old unit like her definitely needs that. And think of Frost Moon's preempt pulse more as a failsafe or as like an insurance when your double is going to be getting denied, which is going to be happening because Thorr is so slow. If there's any kind of unit with follow-up negation or any kind of null follow-up, then she's not going to be able to double. So in that instance, she's going to be getting the preempt pulse out of Frost Moon. So you still get the true damage out of this slotty skill, and you're going to be seeing the slice skills with Frost Moon quite a bit. And that's the reason you don't completely focus on the preempt pulse of the Frost Moon. Instead, the piercing matters more, and also the scaling based on the resistance. And for slot B, you can run different skills. Attack Resistance Discord can also work, but Detect skill does work with even the AoE builds because the exposure true damage is going to be helpful with that. The true damage out of the Discord skills do not get added to the AoE specials, and again the middle of the turn debuff is always helpful for Summoner duels. And Soaring Guidance could be run in the slot C so that she can always have some kind of fortress. A lot of people do run her with Shadow Shift as well, so that is also going to be another option. And then I've got Legendary Xander, who has made an insane comeback with his Refine and Remix, and he is so strong, but we haven't really gotten a lot of time to fully use him. I'm quite sure that he is in the 10 strongest units category, but it's just that I think spacing him out and then getting him after a couple of months may be a bit more helpful, because we may get better cavalry skills that he could try and use. Right now, he can just work with the Excel Remix skill that he comes with. He doesn't need Slice of Sparrow that badly. He also works with like Fatal Smoke or any other slotsy skill. He doesn't need Shadow Shift, and the main skill that you're going to be getting him for right now is going to be Haze Slice, because he already has the piercing. So Haze Slice does make sense to make him insanely bulky. So maybe after a couple of months we see more slotty and slotsy options for him. And as I said before, the Ether Raids offense mythics are really important. Now Peony and Plumeria are in a very unique position, but the other older mythics might not be in such a good position when it comes to the support or even their combat, but still you need a lot of investment to make the full use out of them, and Air is one of them. So I have this build on her. This is the perfect build that I would finally like, but of course I don't have the fodder. But these are all of the bleeding edge builds that I'm showing right now. And in Ether Raid's offense, it's about roll compression. You cannot bring another dagger flyer over Air and just try and use her like that, because that is going to be taking a team slot. You may as well bring another support unit like Bridal Catria, Ymir, or just a Gale Force unit or any kind of extraction unit. And that's why, investing in your Ether Raid's offense core mythics is very important. Mela did get the run in the Hall of Forms, but back then she didn't have access to Barricade or Attack Resistance Discord, so she could try and get this and help with the warp blocking. I don't think her preferred slotsy skill is needed that much right now, and she also gives the dull all support from her weapon, so it could be run, but if you just want to have more stats, then Arcane Fell Arts can give you the value, and Attack with Echo can always be a useful attune skill if they are not a flyer and if they're like an infantry unit, because you're able to warp and maybe smite your units, and that is really helpful for engaging in the combat and not relying on the Otter's buff if you're away from Rune or like Peony. Uller also got a pretty nice weapon refine, but the main thing she's missing is the true damage. She does get the potent 100% hit, but still you could pick up Speed Taker for the value. And she is going to be functioning as a lingering nuke. I would still probably just use her with her preferred skill, but like I said, having more options is never bad. And you can also try and get many of these save units or Omnitanks, because usually these units take resources and skills from multiple units. So it's not the easiest to build them, and they are also the units that require all of the Dragon Flowers, because they're going to be tanking. They're not the offensive units. So Binding Worlds Forma does a fantastic job with that. And even though we have got Valentine Edelgard, Winter Edelgard, I think that Summer Edelgard actually becomes a really good Far Savior, because she has got a dual phase brave weapon. And as I explained before, a lot of people do use Ymir with Bridal Catria teams with lingering nukes and Emblem Lane herself, and try and nuke a lot of the Far Save tanks. And it's quite hard for these Far Save tanks to survive and break through the miracle of Ymir. But Summer Edelgard is one of the few units who can do it, because she's got the brave weapon. She will hit them on 1 HP and then finish them off, and that's why she can function with the Briar Far Save skill and Shield Fighter, and Distant Counter Echo is also an attune skill she can make use of. You can also try and get her as a player phase unit, but this is an interesting option that I've actually ran into a couple of times in top tier Ether Raids Vault of Heaven, so she can actually be a really strong Far Savior. And Gatry did get an amazing refine, so he can function with Shield Fighter or even with Wily Fighter, depending on whatever you want. I think I like the Wily Fighter playstyle a bit more when it comes to near saving, because the potent follow-up attacks of Ira and facing Valentine Edelgard does become a bit harder for these Shield Fighter tanks. And usually any kind of older Omni tank like Brave Tiki is going to be needing that attuned Null Counter Disrupt for the same reason I mentioned in Halloween Xane section. There's just so much flash status going around, and Tiki can also use Barricade. So if she's not present in the Awakening Hall of Forms this month, then you could try and get her as well if you like her a lot. Now, Ether Raid's defense mythics don't really matter as much for the scoring. Yes, they can help you with the lift loss reduction, but usually the best Ether Raid's defense units are going to be the units that you cannot get out of Binding Worlds, like Freyr, the best one, and then Lorathor, and then Hathrin. All of those units, you cannot get them right now, but still Note and Mirabilis are pretty decent mythics, and if you've invested in them a lot, then it can also help to get the premium skills, which can really push them to the next level. And Firm Canto Curb can be run on many of these infantry mythics that are older, because a lot of the newer ones like Hathran, for example, just have a preferred slotsy skill, so it does become a bit harder to slot in the Firm Canto Curb. I mean, of course, they can run Legendary Sakura now to try and counter this, but still, having this can be a good check against the players that are not going to be having it. And you can also try and update your older duo units. Now, these kinds of duo units have already gotten a weapon refine, and in the case of Duo Hilda, she's going to be getting it after like 18 months from now, so a long time, and until then you can make use of Ice Lock, make the full use out of her being a flying healer with the Crux skill, make use of the Legendary Sakura skills, and Bridal Micaiah is not as insane as Attune Micaiah or even Legendary Micaiah when it comes to nuking and killing the Far Saviors, but she can be another unit in your arsenal that you can use to destroy those annoying, really tanky Far Saviors with her affected damage, and she can make use of the Frost Moon and Slimer and all of the debuffs to do it. And because she's a flying unit, she can also run Soaring Echo to enable the warping, but of course not to the level of Attune Micaiah. And then we have got a duo unit in Duo Ephraim, who's in a bit of a weird limbo. He is the only duo unit that is going to be appearing from your arena tickets, so if you're trying to update him with the best possible skills, then this is the player phase build you could run. His Canto is kind of bad from his weapon, so that's why you need Brutal Tempest. You can also make use of Momentum, and Haste Slice is also really nice with his attack, and Haste Slice does have the Pre-Impulse built in it, and that's why it can be a really good thing for a lot of player phase units. Many times we get the weapon refines for free-to-play units that are completely insane and they're so strong, and while these units are not on the level of Seteth, I think they still have gotten a pretty good or decent weapon refine that can be used. So New York Keaton is a unique one because he has got the Selfish Breath of Life built in his weapon, so he is almost the only beast unit who can get the Breath of Life healing and run Barricade himself. And because he lacks the -1 special cooldown weapon, he gets to run Lagoose Friend with Sturdy Beast and stack up a lot of unpierceable damage reduction, so that is really powerful. And then Ashnard was the Seteth before Seteth because he could give a lot of attack debuffs on the enemy, and he can still be used with that with a Crux skill because he lacks the guaranteed follow-up attack, and maybe when attack defense Crux comes out, that is something you could run. But still, you could try and build him up for the support. You could run the Snag skill so that he can debuff the attack of the opponent even more, inflict them with the Sabotage status. So I do like doubling down with the support on these kinds of units, but I guess if you're going to be going for the combat refine, then reopening, Breath of Life, stuff like that can also be done. But one of the best ways of using Ashnard is basically putting him on the front lines and then covering him with like 2 saviors, and as these saviors trigger their save skill, they're also going to be getting the benefit of the debuffs, the insane debuffs that Ashnard is able to bring to the table. And then we have got Har. He did have a dual phase brave weapon. It does have flat damage reduction, but it does lack the true damage and the piercing, but Assault Force gives that to him. And again, Haste Slice is also really nice for him. Brutal Tempest on the Black Tempest does suit well, and he's able to get the Canto without using any kind of Sigurd Ring. A lot of the older favorite units of yours are still functional with their weapon, like Summer Cloth still has a player phase brave weapon. It's just that you need to stack up a ton of true damage for it to matter, and you can try and get that kind of Forma with Speed Taker, Slice the Sparrow, and Air Orders can pretty much fulfill the condition of his weapon, which is amazing. And we have got Summer Female Byleth as also one of the most redeemed Formas, because she takes a lot of expensive skills. Her refine is decent, it's not the most insane thing, and she can provide the drive, damage reduction, piercing support, so she is a bit supportive in nature, and she can try and snipe from a distance and set up the deadly miasma terrain. And hopefully we can also get Windsweep 4 in the game, because I think I would like it a lot more over Occultist Strike. Brave Alm used to be a force to be reckoned with. Back in the old days, I used him so much in Ether Raids and Summoner Duels. You can see my videos. But now, unfortunately, we have got so many extraction units like Brave Felix, units like Legendary Ira, so it does become a bit hard for our boy here. But the good thing is that his refine and even his slotty skill is still worth running, and he can stack up the true damage with momentum. And now he has got the Brutal Tempest to get the Canto without using the Sigurd Ring. So he has got the flexibility of running his Wife's Ring or running the Marth Ring if he's running an AoE build. And the pre-impulse of Haste Slice and Momentum is going to be stacking up in the player phase, so he could immediately hit with it and maybe try and survive if the enemy is able to counterattack. And we have got many of the holoform units that have just the outdated skills now. And at the time when they got the Refine, either the skills that he got in holoforms didn't age well with them and just clashed with their Refine, or they are just too outdated. So Fallen Ike did get a pretty nice weapon refine. He has got a bit of a Laguz Acquaintance built in his weapon, and he ideally wants to have Laguz Loyalty because he already has the piercing in his weapon, and Time Pulse Edge is also helpful. He does have the distant counter weapon, so Null Counter Disrupt Echo is good, and then he could try and stack up the Unity skills. And Edelgard's holoforms happened all the way back before even we got our first free-to-play Forma, and unfortunately, her holoforms never saw the revival because they started the revival holoforms from the Tokyo Mirage Session holoforms, not from the Three Houses one. So the base Edelgard still can do things with her extra action, and she is going to be needing a lot of help with Slice, Dirty Blow, Momentum, and the Brutal Tempest for the Canto and the extra movement. And Haste Slice is again a premium skill to get, but with this build you have the flexibility of using an AoE special as well, because Slice, Dirty Blows, True Damage does get added into that. And then Tempo Echo can just give you the piercing. Tsubasa did get the revival holoforms, and there a lot of people did try and get many of the skills. I mean, we didn't have the best of the options, and most of the effects out of those skills just became redundant with her refine, so it's a bit sad. But now she can make use of Assault Force because she doesn't have the easiest time triggering the specials, and Haste Slice, because she is a primarily player phase unit, can work for her. She already has Canto, so she needs Endless Tempest. And she does have the armor effective damage. It's just that she's not going to be having the true damage in her weapon, so you definitely need to supplement that. And then we have got many of the arena legendary units that people have at Plus and Merge. Demote and Chrom are some of the most common ones because they have been rerun so much. And he was also on the Hero Fest, and now he's easily sparkable on the remix banners, so a lot of people have him. And now he has gotten the tools which truly helps him kill every last one of them, because he doesn't need to tank and become like a generic Lance Infantry unit. He can try and make use of his power with Brutal Tempest, get the Canto, get the extra movement without using the Sigurd Ring, and that could be maybe on some other arena unit of yours. In Arena, it's kind of hard to give all kinds of support to your units, so that's why having self-sufficient units that have their own effects can be helpful, and that's why perfect attack speed also helps. And even though he has got Atrocity 2, which does have true damage, and its true damage is going to be a bit more than Speed Taker, still, like, its after combat debuffs are meaningless if you're not able to survive in the combat or you fail to kill the enemy. So that's why Speed Taker can actually enable you to run an attune skill like Time Pulse Echo, and this way you can immediately trigger Haste Slice and then trigger it again as the enemy retaliate backs and they survive, and that way you're able to kill them a lot more easily. Speed Taker also gives you the true damage, but based on his speed, so it's gonna be a bit less than Atrocity 2, but still I think the merits of it can be helpful, as you can just run Celica Ring Haste Slice, or you could even run Marth Ring Haste Slice, and because of having Time Pulse Echo, you can pre-charge it and even take care of the enemies that may scowl you. So you always have those options, and you have to run the Attune Time Pulse Echo skill because Brutal Tempest is needed no matter what to retreat with him. He's just going to be dying if you leave him in the enemy lines. Legend Chrom is still really good because he is able to get an extra action, and he's also able to get a lot of stats by just having a lot of status effects on himself. He's not able to copy status like Brave Chrom, of course, but still overall he is able to function well with a lot of the units that give like 2-3 status effects on their own, and he can still try and kill many of the Nidogres and stuff if you give him Winter Cordelia support in Ether Raids. And the pledge can help you trigger Curve Shot easily, and Tempo does give you the damage reduction piercing, which he's going to be missing out on. And it's a bit harder for him to trigger Deadeye anyways, so that's why this can work. And then we have got Legendary Ninian, one of the best dancers in Arena as a Legendary unit, because she can score really high because of having a 400 SP slot B skill in High Dragon Wall, and then having a 300 SP distant counter Dragon Sacred Seal. So mainly it's there for the scoring, but she herself can get the extra action and can go in and attack. So Excel skill can be useful with Dragon's Roar. I mean, she's not going to be having the highest resistance, but mainly this is for the scoring and for the value. And Cigarette Ring is needed with Shadow Shift. You need to have some kind of Canto. I mean, you could also run Firestorm Dance with Shadow Shift, but that could be done on many of the other dancers. They're not necessarily going to be scoring as high as her. And speaking of dancers, there are going to be a lot of them that are simply never going to be getting a refine. Duo Sigurd was skipped and was not given a refine, so you could try and run Arcane Blood Gang on him. Frost Moon is also an option, and he could use his resistance to ploy the enemies, and he's still a cavalry dancer, so that does have utility. Someone like Eldigan that you may have built up many years ago or even gotten him in Hall of Forms, he can now completely change his build with Johanna Lance providing the support to your allies, and he also gets the damage reflection himself, so he could try and make use of it with the Excel skill and Haste Slice if he initiates his combat. And because of being a flying unit, he can run Soaring Echo and the Crux skill, so he benefits from this himself and also to his allies. And then you stack up even more support with the Desperation status of Firestorm Dance, which is just incredible. And Carrot Bow Plus is kind of underrated. There are not too many units that can successfully run it because they do not have enough resistance, but Neon Plumeria is one of the few units who can debuff all of your stats with this weapon, and the Ploy skill debuff you for the Ploy exposure and the Discord status, and also give the target ally the visible buffs, which is amazing while enabling the warping with Soaring Echo. Coming back to Arena, a lot of people did plus and merge many of these duo units, specifically Ninja Korin, because she was in the Hero Rises and she was also given out as a free unit that everyone got. So many people do have her at plus and merge, and while the scoring of these units is no longer that dominant compared to even a free-to-play unit like Marnie, still they are ranged units. They have access to the Lin Ring, the Sigurd Ring, and they can provide the warping support or do things that no other free-to-play unit can really do. So you can use them in your arena core still with the updated skills so that you can deal with the modern threats. So Ninja Korin does need all of the true damage with a brave weapon like that, and she also needs the piercing. And you could also run Duo Chrom to make sure that he can kill Marnies with his effective damage and the pre-charge curve shot, and you're able to trigger it twice because of the tempo skill. And Fatal Smoke 4 is needed to get rid of the miracle of Marnie, and she's going to be there in every single match if you're going to be playing in the high tier arena. And then Duo Dagger is unfortunately really underwhelming in the combat. Like sure, she has got the Pathfinder, but it doesn't mean much when we have Celica Ring, Sigurd Ring, so many ways of just warping. So her combat also needs to be better so that she is just not standing there. And that's why Air Orders 4 is good with the weapon of hers. It has good synergy and provides support. And then you have got Soaring Echo, and you just, standard stuff, stack up the true damage. And all of these units are like 3 years away from getting their refine, so it's a long time. And then we have got many of the units that are actually pretty close to the refines, like Brave Female Korin, who's going to be getting it in September of 2025. And I'm just showing this if you're like the biggest fan and if you cannot wait. I get asked a lot about her build and the best options that she has got. And right now, Higher Ground is really good for the warp blocking for the utility while setting up the stone terrain. So at least that's a bit more unique. And then we have got Ninja Lin, who's going to be getting a refine next month in April. So she has got the active lookout now from Aided Yunaka. So that's probably going to be aging better unless she gets Desperation in her weapon. So I would suggest waiting before getting her, but if everything turns out well, then maybe you could aim for this build in the next Binding World. and Fallen Edelgard should also be getting a refine in a couple of months, and I really hope that she does not get put into the refine jail like Reinhardt, Surtur, Hector, Ophelia, stuff like that, because she is in a really bad form right now with being a beast armor. Even though she has got an extra action, it doesn't mean much because she doesn't even have access to Assault Rush of Valentine Edelgard. Beast units cannot get that. So the best thing she can do is run lower ground, higher ground, or barricade, and maybe function with the Sigurd Ring and the guaranteed follow-up attack of Wily Fighter. Even her preferred skill is outdated at this point, but thankfully she has got the extra action in her weapon, so she could be used in the Guild Force teams. On the topic of refines, we have gotten some really nice refines on Dusil, for example, and he becomes a really good supportive unit with giving out the defensive tempo, which not a lot of units do, and he has also got the lull attack defense, so he can help a lot of the tanks, and he himself is really tanky with the flat damage reduction now, and he has got Canto 2 built in his weapon, so he does have flexibility of using Celica Ring. Now unfortunately he doesn't have minus and special cooldown, so running no quarter is a bit harder, and that's why Haste Slice does come a bit more naturally to him, because it does have the pre-impulse built in it for the player phase, and that way he can try and survive and then retreat with the Canto that he has got, and Assault Force also gives him true damage based on his defense, which is just perfect. Shamir and Catherine also got their refines. Catherine has a very player phase focused weapon refine, and she's got the Desperation, the potent follow-up attack, but she doesn't have minus and special cooldown. So that's why running Emblem Marthring is extremely important on her, and you can try and run Brutal Tempest in your Slotsy so that you could try and get the Canto and the extra movement, which is really good, and then you can use Momentum with Gust for triggering that special and also getting a lot of true damage with her Treachery status, and then Tempo Echo can give you the piercing so that you can run Gust, which scales off your speed a lot better compared to No Quarter, which scales off of your attack. Shamir's weapon refine was not that well received by even a lot of her fans, but I would say that she has gotten better now because we've got access to Tempo Echo. We also have the Lin Ring, so her sweep effect becomes really good for Emblem Lin nuking, and we also have Speed Taker, which is the perfect skill for her. So she needs a lot of investment to function at her peak, and if I had to pick a better refine out of Catherine or Shamir, then I guess I'm going to be giving Shamir the two-toned Whetstone in this, because Shamir can debuff the enemies with the Sabotage, but unfortunately Catherine's Treachery is going to be facing a lot of lull and dull effects, and I do like the Lin Ring sniping with the sweep effect. Many times we have these units that have very high ceiling for their combat, but getting to that ceiling is incredibly hard with all of this premium fodder, and Lilith is one of them because she can hit like a truck with her weapon refine. She gets a lot of true damage, and then you stack it up with momentum, trigger a special, and because she's a flying dragon, she can give out the warp blocking with barricade now, and also provide the warping with Soaring Echo, and with her refine she can warp near her support partner. Now of course her niche was a lot better when we didn't have this much warp blocking, but still nonetheless she is quite unique for a dragon flyer, which is a really hard archetype to make good units for in my opinion, and the only other good flying dragon I would say in the game is probably Halloween female Rima, because she got an incredible tanking refine, but everyone else I think that is just going to be competing with other units of the movement types. Even Halloween Tiki can try and do this, but she doesn't get as much true damage, instead she gets a lot of stats. Ascended Celica is also a really unique unit because of her miracle that she can try and loop by getting any kind of healing from Flare or Ether. I mean, in this case you cannot run Flare with Lagu's Loyalty, but still you could try and get the healing out of Divine Nectar or any kind of Breath of Life or any kind of ally that can give you the 7 HP healing as a support, and they can just outsource that to you. And she can function as an anti-Lorathra unit because of having the low visible defense and the fact that she's got Miracle, and she can be quite fast with perfect attack speed, giving her the null follow-up, and now Lagu's Loyalty also making it harder for the enemy to double her. And the biggest problem with her is that she does not have a lot of bulk like Halloween Xane. So Brave attacks or Brattle Catria, Winter Cordelia supported attacks can just kill her, so you really need to try and stack up the flat damage reduction, and there's not a lot of ways of doing it on a mage like this. Lagu's Loyalty is the main one, which can scale off of her speed, so at least we have that, and then you give her the Divine Nectar and maybe Seteth support, so you could try and survive those brave hits and then keep your miracle. And again, Null Counter Disrupt Echo is really important when you're trying to function against Larothor. Ascended Ishtar also doesn't need any kind of Arcane Thunder. She has got her own Thunder, and this can give her the brave hits if she wins the speed check, and she also has the full tempo built in it, so it allows her to trigger the specials really easily with the help of a Plet skill. And she does lack null follow-up, but Slice the Sparrow does give you the guaranteed follow-up attack, so technically it can be like a pseudo half null follow-up, and the true damage out of the Swift Sparrow skill and Resonance is so good. And you just need to support her with a Dancer that can give her the Desperation status with Firestorm Dance, and she's golden. She's going to be hitting really hard with the quad hits, with triggering her specials. It's just that she lacks the true damage in her weapon, which is the case with a lot of the older units, so you would need to try and cover that with her build. Even though Seasonal Refines and its speed is slower than Arden, we still have many of the Harmonic and Duo units with their Refines. Here we have got Winter Eltina, who got it thanks to her Mythic version, and she does have the distant counter weapon, but she is an infantry unit, so she has more options than Mythic Eltina, more flat damage reduction, Canto, true damage and stuff like that, and even Null Counter Disrupt Echo. So this kind of max build on these refined units can help. And Duo Alphonse also functions similarly to Duo Asker with his special cooldown support, with his Duo button, and he can try and just nuke hard with his specials. So for that, Lagu's Friend does help, and now his Open the Future is kind of outdated, so you could just run Ignis, but for the value you could get Frost Moon. And Duo Eden does have the flat damage reduction in her weapon and also Dragon Wall, so at least it can help her against the AoE specials, and she can certainly try and stack up the flat damage reduction with Wily Fighter and also with Dragon's Roar. On any of these Dragons Beast units that I mentioned, you should try and get like lower ground, higher ground, or barricade on them, because we only have one warp blocking skill in the entire Divine Codes in Rearm Nell, who you're probably going to be using for a infantry dragon, I would guess, many times because of its skills also being a thing. So whenever you get the chance, you could try and get those warp blocking skills, because just one warp blocking combat manual is not enough in this game when we have got so much nonsense when it comes to warping. So you could try and get some of the recent quote-unquote units that are available in Binding Worlds in version 6. So here we have got Ninja Duo Leg Yarn and also Ninja Camilla, and both of these units need a lot of investment with their brave weapons. Leg Yarn here can quad attack thanks to the Slice Dirty Blow now, and she can also provide some warping support, be bulky with her mixed stat spread. And Ninja Camilla here does need Frost Moon, and even though she's got a brave weapon, she loves the piercing out of the Frost Moon and the fact that it can scale off of her resistance. And this way she can just pass up on running Resonance for the piercing and still get the true damage because of the Discord skill, but get even more in-combat debuffs on the enemy in the combat, which is amazing with these Discord skills. And Flame Tribe Mordecai is going to be getting a refine in September of 2026, and still he can function as a good frontliner because of his visible defense and his weapon. I mean, his weapon is lacking a lot of the things that you need on a modern weapon, but still, because he's a beast unit, he can run the barricade support and also run Lagu's Friend with Sturdy Beast, and I hope he doesn't get minus one special cooldown in his weapon. Then I'll like to go over to the arcane weapon units now. I was mainly going over a lot of the preferred weapon units, and these arcane weapon units are going to be some of the most redeemed units by many people, because these are usually the older units that are recruitable that are your favorites and that eat up a lot of dragon flowers. So female Shez and Camilla are officially some of the most +10 merge units as mentioned by Faye. So these are going to be their best builds. With any kind of arcane weapon, you should not be running a Lagu skill with Gust. You will be needing to run Godlike Reflexes, and Outspeed Wave is a pretty underrated option to not only give yourself more speed, but also the full-on follow-up, and it does work really well when you have something like D bonus doubler. And then Tharja can get Arcane Blood Gang, run a lot of these skills from her ninja version actually, and Time Pulse Echo as an attune skill can help you trigger Flare immediately, and then you could trigger it on your double attack because of Blood Gang's Null Guard. Camilla is a unique unit because she can function with Pegasus Rift. The benchmark for Pegasus Rift is 40 resistance. She is just 1 resistance shy here, but you're probably going to be merging her, so she's going to be getting that easily. So she gets the effect out of those, and she can stack up a lot of flat damage reduction with her weapon with the slot A. And now she's got Brutal Tempest, so she can go in and Canto out, so it can also improve her player phase. Deadly Miasma is also an option. You could try and tank with her, but I wouldn't really recommend, even if you stack up a lot of damage reduction. And No Quarter can give you the full damage reduction piercing. You already get the pre-impulse out of Arcane Giant Axe, so getting the full piercing is going to be helpful. There are many weapon types where we haven't got the third arcane weapon for, but that's fine. We have got some generic inheritable weapons that are so absurd that even if you don't get those arcane weapons, you're going to be having a good time. And the best inheritable weapon has to be Jehana Lance. This generic weapon is absurd. Like, this is better than 90% of preferred lances of the units in this game. So it provides you with damage reflection, which is amazing because it lets you basically stack up the flat damage reduction with Excel, Spiked Wall and stuff like that, Gust, and then reflect back the damage, and that can do a lot of damage to these insanely tanky units like Nidhogre that already do so much damage to you and they're so bulky to take out. So Jehana Lance is perfect for that. It also has the Phantom Speed built in it. It gives you the +6 attack and speed buff and the dodge and the null debuff status to yourself and the allies in 2 spaces. So it's a supportive weapon while being an amazing offensive weapon. So this build could be run on any kind of lance infantry, say like Nefni or maybe Summer Female Robin. So these arcane and generic weapon builds are something that you could put on any of your favorite. I'm just showing these as a sample build, and you could try and focus a bit more on your player phase with a weapon like this, and you can easily run Spiked Wall for getting the Null Guard so that you can trigger Gust on your double. And then Brutal Tempest is amazing for retreating. Branya got slaughtered when it came to her weapon refine compared to her contemporaries like Ileana or Sonia. So now her best weapon is going to be Devoted Cup Plus. This is also an absurd weapon because its ceiling of true damage is at 25. So you get 25 true damage per hit. And when you combine that with the brave attacks of Dual Strike and Triangle Attack supportive units like Brattle Catria, then you can have almost like 50 true damage on every single hit of yours with Slice skills, with Resonance, with the exposure status, and the Devoted Cup Plus debuffs the enemy for their speed and resistance and inflicts them with the Discord status, so you could double down and even support your allies with the Pulse Ploy skill. So this is the slow Blue Mage build you could run, and for the archers it is certainly tough. Doubler Bow is not as insane as these other 2 weapons, but if you are a ranged armor bow, then you could try and use this weapon to stack up your stats. And now we do have Wily Fighter 4, Slick Fighter 4, so this way you can get some flat damage reduction and true damage, scaling of their defense, and twin save scales also help a lot. So trying to run this kind of beacon build is fine on your favorites. And then we have got many of the insanely popular brave units like Micaiah and Ike. Unfortunately, their weapons are no longer good enough in the modern times, so they would need to switch up to the arcane weapon. And Arcane Truth Fire is so good for Micaiah. Now she's got Frost Moon and she's not going to be having the effective damage, but she is still going to be able to hit really hard. Ike, on the other hand, can try and stack up the flat damage reduction instead of stacking the pierceable damage reduction with his Irvan, and Boulder is also an option now, which I think you should be running. I really like Boulder with Reopening or with Spiked Wall over Ignis with Lagu's Friend, so the more unpierceable damage reduction is always nice, and Tempo Echo is perfect for the piercing, and it also has good synergy with Guard, so the enemy is not charging their special if they don't have Null Guard themselves. Unfortunately, the only rearmed beast we have got is Aether, so it's kind of hard to use her and duplicate a lot of skill through her because she's the only unit and she doesn't even get run a lot. So you could try and have this kind of build on any kind of fast beast unit. The fodder from Neo Restvalgr is good, but you also get the weapon and barricade as an additional support. And then Distant Counter Echo is actually something you can make use of with the damage reduction that you're getting a bit with the Nimble Beast. The Demote units are sometimes harder to summon in Fae than the 5-star focus units, and we got Raisin in the Demote pool many years ago, and he can still do really well with the skills of the modern beast units. And again, barricade, higher ground, lower ground, any kind of warp blocking is so good to get in Binding Worlds. So he is very unique because he can warp block, he can enable warping, and then he does the Firestorm dance, and with the fortune skills now, he can guarantee transform, and rally attack speed is only there for the Binding Worlds value, but he is going to be running dance, and now he also has Nimble Beast if he wants to try and survive. Lex did get a decent weapon refine. The dual phase brave weapon is always good, and he does need a lot of expensive skills like Odd Defense Wave, Assault Force, and even Attack Defense Excel, which is kind of rare. So you could try and grab him so that he can get the true damage per hit and also the piercing. And in the player phase, Haste Slice is going to be amazing to trigger with the full tempo of Odd Defense Wave and the special charges of his weapon. Echidna did get a nice weapon refine back then. It's not all that impressive anymore, but still, for an Axe unit, I think she is still good for the stat stacking, and she has got the damage reflection, the full damage reflection, unlike, Calic, who got the bad version of damage reflection. So she could be run with a lot of damage reduction skills, and because she is a free-to-play unit, she didn't really have -1 special cooldown, but that actually works in her favor with Lagu's Loyalty and Gust, and she can just stack up a lot of stats and hope for the best with the visible buffs and the debuffs on herself. Now, there are many Grand Hero Battle units that we did build up years ago. Black Knight is one of them. I mean, sure, you could run him as a near save, but do you need another near save? So for these kinds of passion projects, even if these units are not the best anymore or not even that good anymore, you could still get some extremely premium skill to update them, and anything that can increase your fun of the game is a win in my eyes. So this kind of Black Knight build is going to be stacking up a lot of stats with Doubler Sword, with Slick Fighter giving you the guaranteed follow-up attack and the flat damage reduction for surviving. Unfortunately, armors do not have too many slotty options, so the boost skills will have to do, and he can get Assault Rush out of Binding Worlds, which is a very rare skill from Valentine Edelgard. And if you're lucky, Distant Counter Echo is going to be the perfect attune skill that you could try and get, or even Wings of Mercy Echo. Yeah, that's going to be kind of cool to warp in if you really want to follow that kind of theme. And he is going to be needing a lot of support, but if you're a big Black Knight fan, which I know there are a lot of people who have built him up, then this could be a way you could update him. Chronia used to be a really good free-to-play unit in Ether Raids in its early days because she had this Vantage dagger, and Vantage was a really popular strategy back then, and we didn't have that much damage reduction, so it was easier to do, but now it's so hard. But still, you could try and maintain her uniqueness by getting the skills that can synergize with her weapon refine, which wasn't really all that insane, honestly. So C bonus doubler and speed taker are the modern options, and creation pulse gives you the preempt pulse before your attack, so it does work with the Vantage, and null counter disrupt is pretty much needed on any kind of Vantage or Omnitank unit. if they happen to be infantry. I'm not sure when we're going to be getting other rearmed beast weapons, but if we don't, then this could be an option for Nisala to upgrade him with the modern skills and get Soaring Echo. And then finally we have got some other arcane favorites. So Ascended Eden is one of the more recent armor units with decent mix bulk, so you can try and get a very expensive build on her with Arcane Fel Art, which is the best Dragon Breath right now. It's better than her weapon. I mean, her weapon does provide her with the Sevalan shield, but she is going to be functioning as a Far Savior here, and even with her own preferred weapon, she's like dying to attune Micaiah anyways. So this weapon is a bit better for its consistent flat damage reduction that it can provide you with, and Higher Ground is perfect for the warp blocking. Because we're running Higher Ground, you should not be running Armored Blaze, Armored Beacon, Dragon's Roar in my opinion most of the time, because you're not going to be having the twin effect to come and save you when you get attacked again with another instance of damage reduction. So Shield Fighter can work with Aegis, and that's why we need the Arcane Breath. And you can also run Distant Counter Echo as the attune skill so that you can have the flexibility of running something else in her Sacred Seal. Arcane Darkbow is so old, but the Desperation effect built in it is kinda good now with the Lindring nuking, because you don't even need the support of a Firestorm Dancer. You can just try and stack up the true damage with Slash the Sparrow and Speed Taker, and Deadly Miasma is also great to set up from a distance. And finally, I've got this healer build, which any kind of, infantry healer can run. This is the most premium build you could run on a healer. They've got the Wrathful Staff in the slot A, the support, the true damage, and Call to Serve in slot B from Legendary Sakura. Ice Lock is perfect for the utility. Glitter of Light with Lindring can spread the flash status in middle of the turn, which is hard to cleanse. And then Tempo Echo gives you the damage reduction piercing, and Pulse Deploy gives you even more support and lets you pre-charge your Glitter of Light, and in many cases also triggered twice because of Arcane Charmer's special charges and then Tempo Echo. So I wanted to save the best unit for the last in my Mercy. So I hope all of these builds can help. These are the bleeding edge builds, and I know, at some point these are going to be getting outdated, but still, this is going to be giving you an idea of how you should be selecting the skills on these kinds of units. And the pool of the Binding Worlds unit is not going to be changing until like the next year, so still all of these units are going to be available. It's just that they're going to be having some skills upgraded, and you can just tune in for my videos if you want to know about the updated skills that you could run on these units. I always cover them in my ban reviews. As a bonus section, I've got some Binding Worlds trivia here for you, and I've also got my showcase showing off all of my Binding Worlds Formas and the builds that I've got. A lot of people are curious, which characters did I redeem? And in Binding Worlds, I basically try and go for my merch projects or my favorites. So the Binding World Formas that I got, like Eden and Legend Chrom, were back in the day, so we didn't have a lot of the modern skills back then, and Hardy Fighter was still good on Eden, and Legend Chrom would run a speedy build to stack up the speed. But then we started to get a lot of Arcane Devourer sword units. I tried to get them because I've got so many sword units that I wanted to get good skills for. Certainly for Lin, Longku, Leaf, all of these units. And I even got a lean at one point. And then after we started to get the attune skills, I would only really redeem any kind of Forma with an attune skill. I don't want to get a premium unit that doesn't have an attune skill. Maybe the Cavaliers don't have the best options, but hey, give me at least like Mercy Wing Echo or even like Deathblow Echo. I need something. And if you're wondering, at the moment of making this video, a player could have gotten maximum 15 Binding Worlds Forma. I'm showing 14 of them, and if you paid attention to the footage I showed in this video, you would see like 3 Otherworld Bonds, which doesn't make sense. So the story behind it is that I waited too long to redeem a Forma. In that month, I had my exams, so I was just procrastinating, shortlisting the units. I think I had decided a unit, but then I just forgot about it, and I forgot to redeem the Forma unit I wanted in that one Binding World. So it is so embarrassing to tell, but yeah, I guess that Otherworld Bond is going to be staying there to taunt me. And My first thought when it came to buying this item was that I need to do this for the videos because I need to get the experience. I can only speak from my experience, and thankfully we got a free Otherworld Bond, and all of this was useful. And I hope that they could put this in the Celestial Stone shop because we also got Forma Soul on an anniversary the first time, and then they came to the Celestial Stone shop. So it's about time like they put this in the shop, because just let us have the fun with these maxed out old units. I mean, it's not going to be hurting anyone. As I said, they should be having the 20 days length for the event. 10 days I felt like was too short, especially now that the pool is bigger. So the quality of life is needed, and at this point I guess they are updating the pool every single year in the anniversary month in February. So it is going to be 7.11 in the next year's February, and this is a relatively new game mode compared to the ancient dinosaur game modes that we have got in this game, like Arena and Ether Raids and stuff. So there's still a lot of room of improvement, and I hope you all enjoyed this comprehensive video and guide on Binding Worlds. It took me a lot of time to make, and I really wanted to give my all for this video because this is such a valuable item, and I know so many players were so excited to get this item. So feel free to ask me any kind of question in the YouTube comments or on my Twitter. I'll try my best to reply to you and as many people as I can. And I really want to thank all of my YouTube members for their constant support. They enable me to do so many extra things which I would not be able to do otherwise, and make these kinds of comprehensive videos. So you can click the link on the screen right now to check out some of my tactics drills, guides. You're probably missing some orbs, and you can get them, and hopefully you can collect and summon. And you can also subscribe and hit the notification bell, because YouTube sub boxes are about as functional as rearmed Forma units. So with that said, I'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much for watching and have a great day.